Good morning, everyone. I'm Michaela Faulkner. I'm the technology editor at Strip-Tillage Farmer. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar presentation of the 2022 Strip-Till Operational Practices Survey. It's brought to you by Digifarm, and thanks to Digifarm, we're also able to offer a special discount on attendance at the National Strip-Tillage Conference. So stick around till the end of the webinar to get that discount code. Before that, I'm excited to give you a first look at the results of this year's survey and let you hear from the two panelists I have with me today, Jerry Hatfield and Jon Stevens, who will introduce themselves in just a minute. But before we get started, I wanted to mention that this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be emailed out to everyone who registered. It'll also be available to revisit at striptillfarmer.com. And then on your screen, you will see a Q&A icon. You can submit questions here at any time during the presentation, and then we're going to take those at the end of the presentation. We'll leave 10 to 15 minutes for that. Finally, I'm going to open up a poll that's going to pop up on your screen. It's going to ask you what of the list of topics is most important to you among strip building, equipment, nutrition or nutrient management, and precision. We have a lot to cover in just 1 hour, so I want to make sure that we're devoting the most time to what matters to you guys most. So get your vote in. I will launch that right now. You'll see it pop up. And while we are letting people vote, I would like to have Jerry and Jon introduce themselves. So Jerry, if you want to start, just tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, I'm Jerry Hatfield. I'm retired laboratory director of the National Lab for Ag and the Environment. I directed that lab for 32 years, and then I retired in January of 2020 and been doing a lot of interaction with producers since then, looking at regenerative ag practices, what happens when we begin to change systems to look at soil carbon, regenerative agriculture, a number of different things that fit in this bailiwick of helping producers improve their production efficiency. And I've been spending a lot of time analyzing data from producers, looking at what changes in their systems as we change tillage and cover crop practices together. So,
excellent. Thank you again for joining us and for sharing your expertise. And then, Jon, I'll have you go next. Coming to us from the most interesting place.
Jon Stevens from East Central Minnesota. Yeah, sitting in the spring wheat field this morning with the strip machine. We do about 700 acres of corn, bean, and then diversity. We got the beef cattle and the hay and oats and wheat and barley. Some of them grains we are for direct marketing to other farmers who direct market to the consumer, and the beef we direct market, and then we do the strip till, no till, and trying to find our way through the cover crops in the world of soil health.
Great, thank you as well for joining us and sharing what you are doing and what's working for you. So I'm excited to get started here. I'm just going to end the poll. It looks like about just under half of everyone who's joining us today is most interested in nutrient management, followed by equipment. So we'll dedicate some extra time to nutrient management and equipment. All right, let's close this out. To kind of set up the results that we're going to talk about, to give you some context, I'll tell you a little about the survey. Strip-Tillage Farmer conducted the 2022 survey in March. We had nearly 400 farmers respond to the 2022 benchmark survey, most of whom farm in the U.S. You can see the breakouts here. About 63% in the Corn Belt, followed by 21.1% in the Plains and West. So mostly Corn Belt farmers who participated in the survey. And then we had about 72% of respondents were age 45 and older. 52 is the average age of our nearly 400 respondents. And in 2021, the benchmark survey suggested that younger farmers were taking up strip till. This year's respondents tended to be a little bit older. Just to compare, 64% were 45 and older in 2021. This year, like I said, 72%. So you can kind of see what the demographic is of the people who are responding to our survey this year. Then we also asked how long people have been strip tilling who responded to the survey. More than half have been strip tilling for 10 years or less, about 55%. You can see 25% have been strip tilling for 5 to 10 years, and about 31% have been strip tilling for 1 to 4 years. And then we did have about, 17% or so that higher than 15 years. And then in terms of farm sizes of our demographics who answered the survey, this year's respondents strip till an average of 1,083 acres of corn and 548 acres of soybeans. Those might sound like high numbers, and both are significant increase in acres compared to 2020, 58% more corn and 79% more soybeans. But this increase can be partially attributed to more farmers running operations that have more than 5,000 acres who took the survey this year. So we had more people with larger farms taking the survey, which bumped up our average acres. In fact, we had 3 farmers who farm more than 115,000 acres combined, just those 3 farmers. Farmers with 5,000 or more acres made up 9.6% of respondents compared to 4.7% in 2021. But then, as you can see here, the largest group of strip tillers who responded to this survey are farming 1,000 acres or less. That number this year is, we have 16.7% who are between 1,001 acres and 1,500 acres, and then followed by 20.2%, 500 to 1,000 acres, and 500 or less being still, or total cropping acres, I should say, is 23.7. So most of the respondents are farming 2,000 acres or less. Like I said, those bigger farmers pushed up our averages this year. And then moving into some of the data, I won't spend a ton of time on strip building so we can get to the nutrient management section, but strip freshening reached an all-time low in 2021. We had nearly 66% of strip tillers who made strips in the fall did not refresh them in the spring, and another 24% sometimes refresh. So that's a bit of a decline from years past. And then we asked, how deep do you till when building berms? The most common strip depth is 6 inches, followed by 8 inches and 7 inches. As you can see, most of the depths range from 6 to 9 inches. And then we asked how wide people build strips. You can see here 8 inches is the most common practice among this group, with 38.3% building 8-inch wide strips in 2021, followed by 10 inches at 23.5% and 6 inches at 14.8%. And that's the end of our strip building part. So I just want to toss it over to Jon and Jerry for some input about what's working for you and the producers that you work with in terms of when they're strip tilling and strip building.
If Jerry wants to go first.
Yeah, I'll just offer a few comments, and that's the fact that we're seeing as the survey is showing that, you know, the split between fall and spring is out there. It depends on, you know, when people get stuff done in the field and everything. You know, and we're seeing that trend that we talk about with a lot of cover crops going in now. So you know, where do we put that strip, particularly in the spring, and then come back and plant in that whole operation and everything. So, you know, it's really a matter of comfort and what how many acres have to be covered and everything else. So the dynamics of this is how do we manage that residue, and how do we manage that strip as part of that overall system. So Jon, I'll kick it back to you.
I'm just moving out of the wind here.
Okay.
It really kicked up in the last couple minutes. But yeah, for us, I guess I'm right in that category, that 6 to 8 inches with the shank machine. The berm I like kind of a high, narrow berm. To me, it just seems cleaner. And when that dirt settles back in, if you get that berm too wide in our soil, my fear is that when it finally settles back in, that you end up with that furrow. I like spring strip till for us. Our soil's very prone to compaction. If I always say that if you wanted to build a road, you'd take our topsoil, hit it with some water and a smooth drum, pour your asphalt, you got a good road. And I just can't get out of the wind. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, you sound all right.
Okay. Then I'll quit moving around. And so the spring strip till works really good for us because it takes the whole year for that trench, that furrow to settle in, where I attempted fall strips last year for the first time, and this spring they were already settled in and getting tight like the rest of the soil. And then for us, that also comes into the water management thing. In my area, water is a huge issue. Not lack of it, but where our water goes. I'm an hour north up the river from the Twin Cities of several million people, and if they see dirty water, it's the farmer's fault automatically. And so it really helps our infiltration rate. And the other thing I always say is I don't care about going green or Mother Nature. I care about my dollars. And that water going into my soil makes me dollars, and my nutrients there too,
For sure. Well, thank you both. We'll move on to the equipment part in the interest of time here. So we also asked our survey respondents about the equipment they're using. Strip-till toolbars with 12 rows were most popular among this group of survey respondents. There were about 43% who were running a 12-row bar, about 30% run 16-row bars, and another 15% run 8-row toolbars. And then in terms of their row unit setup, half of respondents, 49.5%, use shanks on their strip-till bar, which makes shanks the most popular row unit setup. And then there are about 39.6% of strip tillers using a coulter system, followed by 30.7% using mole knives. And then we asked people what brand of strip-till bar they're using, and we put the 5 most popular among our survey respondents here. Kuhn-Krause was number 1, 23.3%, followed by Case IH at 13.5%, Orthman at 10.9%, Yetter at 9.4%, and Environmental Tillage Systems, or ETS, at 8.3%. So Jon, at this point, I'll hand it over to you and ask you to tell us about what we're looking at behind you.
This is the B&H bar. So this is our first factory bar that we bought. Got to stick to the Minnesota roots. It's manufactured and made in Minnesota. I don't know. Strip-till bars are pretty basic. A shank unit is fairly similar between them all. I would agree with your survey that Kuhn-Krause, that's a heck of a beautiful machine. At the time I was looking, they were selling last fall faster than you could be calling on them. And so that's kind of cool for the industry to see but it's a B&H bar. It's a shank machine. We run the dry fertilizer, so you're seeing the dry hoses. And the guy before me had custom made berming discs out of poly for less sticking than the steel discs. And that's the only, I don't have conditioners back here yet. I'd like to add them for next year, but I wanted to just try the machine out. I'll throw a cheap plug-in for B&H. I mean, the bar worked fantastic. It did what it was supposed to do. In our soil here, I would not use a coulter machine because to push that coulter down takes energy, and that energy is getting dispersed into the soil, where the shank has a natural pull down to itself, so it has that natural heave to the soil to fracture the soil. And I think for me here, the coulter, I don't know how well they would handle rocks. And so this poor thing here, there's a couple fields that you're going along, 5, 6, 7 miles an hour, and kabang, kabang, kabang. It just sounds like you got 5 people with mauls back there for a couple seconds, and it held up good. It's spring reset. Most shank units that you look at, you got your carrier wheel up front, and then you got an adjustable row cleaner, and adjustable coulter depth, and then the shank depth. And it just takes a little bit of time and practice to get everything set. But the nice thing, it's a 12 row. I'm just average on your survey, right in there. 12 row, 30 inch. Get one row working really nice. Don't try and make the adjustment to all 12 rows at the same time. Just get one row working nice, and then move them adjustments to the other 12 and keep going. We started with homemade strip tills, old cultivators, and renovated them. And that allowed us to see the benefit of strip till. And so that's how we ended up here, because we're like, holy crap, this really works, especially in my area. And I always joke, I'm in the state of it don't work here. I'm in the capital city of it don't work here. I'm strip tilling and no-tilling around many neighbors that still say that just simply can't work here. And then when you're doing test plot for some of the seed companies, and they're just like, that kind of worked really good here. Like, yeah, the seed doesn't know that it's not in a full till field. As far as the seed concerned, it's in fluffed, very light soil that's warm and dry, and nutrients are right below, just waiting for it.
And I know you mentioned the row cleaners, and we had one more thing I wanted to share from the equipment section, and that was how people strip tillers who answered this survey are managing their residue. And we have most strip tillers, 82.6%, using row cleaners on the planter. And row cleaners on the strip till rig, like Jon's doing, is also popular, with 71.5% of strip tillers using those. We also have sizing residue with the combine attachments. 37% of people who answered the survey are doing that. And then there were small percentages of strip tillers who are trying out biologicals and vertical tillage tools to manage their residue. And then once again, back to both of you guys, what do you think is the most effective way or combination of ways to manage residue with strip till?
Well, going back to Jon's comment about getting that soil prepped and infiltration and everything, is that that residue away from the strip, both the planter as well as the strip till rig, creates that soil environment where we've got good seed soil contact. We're not worried about putting pieces of residue down that can disrupt that seed zone. So when we do that and we have that nice clean area for that seed, we got good seed soil contact. We've got good water. We got good nutrients. It warms up there, and that one of the things that I love about strip till is that you will see very uniform emergence, because that seed soil environment for germination is pretty ideal. And so, keeping that and then putting that residue between the row to reduce the evaporation rate, and the microbes will eat it over there anyway. But, that 8-inch strip that we can make a perfect seed bed is really ideal in all of this. So I think that's where residue management really comes into this aspect, because, we've seen that over time and time again, is that just creating that seed and that seed soil environment to get that plant off to a great start makes all the difference as we go down the rest of the season.
Jon, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
I would 100% agree with Jerry there that the strip till machine almost, you want the row cleaners because you want a clean berm, just like with conventional tillage. We don't want to be hairpinning residue. I would say that the neat thing about the strip till is you make such a perfect, consistent seed bed from row number 1 to row number 12, and from this end of the field to that end of the field. Whether I'm on a clay knob at this end or blow sand at that end, that the density, the texture is so similar on that strip from end to end that compared to the money we spend on our conventional tillage, where we have to add rolling baskets and all these attachments and several more passes. I mean, geez, this year with the behind the big Massey tractor, and granted that thing runs on no fuel. I mean, a half a gallon an acre, or 0.6 of a gallon of an acre. We're doing primary tillage, our finishing tillage, and our fertility application, and we're micromanaging. We're precision applying our macro dollars. I at this point, I can't fathom how just not everybody is doing strip till, because it's so it just so works.
Well, I think both of you are really making the case for it today, and hopefully it will inspire some more people to pick it up. I'm going to move on to the nutrient management section. What I'll do is I'll run through all of the survey data, and then I'll have you, Jerry, and Jon talk about what you're doing and what works for the people that you're working with. So to start, 2021 marked an increase in the number of farmers who banned fertilizer while strip tilling. We had about 68%. You can see here 67.6% are banding below the berm in 2021 compared to 63.5% in 2020 and about 60% in 2019. So that's on the way up. The most common depth for banding fertilizer is 6 inches, followed by 5 and 4 inches. And then you can see here that we have 35.6% who are mixing into the berm. And then we asked, when do you apply nitrogen in your strip till operation? In 2021, the most common time to apply nitrogen was at side dress, with 60.9% of surveyed strip tillers side dressing, followed by at plant with 44.4% doing it then. In the fall with the strips, that was 29.4%, and in the spring with the strips was 33.7% in 2021. And you can see here how that compares to years past. We also asked, when do you apply phosphorus and potassium in your strip till operation? In fall was the most common application time in 2021, with 53.1% applying P&K in the fall, followed by in the spring with the strips, 29.7%, and at plant, 24.5%. We also asked, what fertilizer do our survey respondents apply with the strip till rig? You can see here there's quite a list. The most popular in 2021 was potash, We had 53.8% of strip tillers applying those with the strips, followed by sulfur at 35.4%, diammonium phosphate at 30.4%, and monoammonium phosphate at 27.9%. So then I will pose the question to Jon and Jerry. What's working for you and the strip tillers that you're working with in terms of nutrient management and when they're placing nutrients?
Yeah, I'll start, and then I'll let Jon clean up all of my comments and everything. So, I think strip tillers have discovered that banding fertilizer to get it where that next to that seed in there. But you also have got to look at this, and I'm a big advocate of getting people to realize that it is a combination of water as well as nutrients in this system. Jon mentioned getting the infiltration into that, but getting that nutrient right where that plant, and you look at the roots that come out of that when we put it into strip till, they're intercepting that nutrient very quickly. It's going to be there during the season. It's where the plant has available water to really make it grow. So you get all these combined effects that really increase the efficiency. If we look at how we start looking at what return do we get for the amount of nitrogen and the amount of phosphorus, the amount of potassium that we put on relative to yield out there, you see that these systems are working in terms of being able to supply that. So we're capturing those nutrients. They're not going off, putting it back into that plant in terms of vegetative growth and then ultimately grain that we harvest. I think really becomes an ideal, and producers need to be looking at their systems and saying, what are we really getting in terms of return on that investment of nutrients? Jon talks about profitability. I often talk about, what are we getting in terms of nitrogen use efficiency or even water use efficiency out of these systems as well. So, look at it from that standpoint. I think that getting that nutrient where that plant can easily take it up, that's where the banding really pays advantages. And all of this in terms of these dynamics that are going on. So.
And then, Jon, what is working for you in terms of when you're applying, how you're applying, and what you're applying?
This is where I really love the strip till, is the nutrient management aspect. The one warning I would say is for the guys that want to do fall strip till, it's a great opportunity to spread the labor and on your farm, and maybe while the local elevator is a little more quiet, you can get out there, but make sure you're not on ground that is going to blow out in the spring on your hillsides. Just think ahead a little bit on that. On the strip till compared to when we were conventional tillage, we got by very successfully so far for several years with half of the sulfur that we've needed. And that one really shocked me. The P and the K is basic math, and the University of Minnesota had tons of studies showing that banding at a reduced rate can actually increase yields versus broadcasts at the 100% that the charts would tell you to. But when we went in with a half rate of sulfur and strip, and then ahead of the planter, and did not see sulfur striping at that normal top dress season, kind of like, something's really working. And I think what it is in our soil, we get lots of rain, very little of it used to make it into my conventional tilled soil. So by this time of the year, that soil is exposed, it's hot, it's dry, all that fertilizer we spread is in that top 2 inches. There's no roots growing through that top 2 inches. There's no life moving them nutrients. Where with the strip till, that fluffy soil just promotes that explosion of root growth to go down, and the nutrients you applied are right there in the zone, and they're always in moisture, and they're always available. If if that root zone at 6 inches is so dry that we can't transfer nutrients, we've got bigger issues to worry about that year. And so with the nitrogen as well, moving from broadcast nitrogen program to putting some of the nitrogen. And so I'm still learning and experimenting, but we quit buying the ESN nitrogen and just went with regular urea with the AMS and the P and K in with the strip till. And then later on, we come back and Y drop the nitrogen versus the half of your nitrogen worked in before the planter and half blown on the field after the planter. We're running 20-30% less nitrogen to get the same or better crop. The strip till, you know, it just opens up this whole conversation and all these side conversations. But the strip till, for us, all these little spots, inconsistent spots in the fields, it evens that up for us. So we're getting better yields as field averages go. We're not getting better yields that the good spot didn't gain a whole lot. It's all these questionable on the yield map. All them light green and yellows moved up a color. The yellows are now light greens, and the light greens are dark greens, and the reds got smaller and moved into the yellow. And so that's money. You know, you put the same seed out there, and we're putting a lot less fertilizer out there, and we're getting more off of the field. And I'll have an example later this spring here on a field that had about a consistent 18% loss of production because of them little dips in it. And where history of a strip till tells me we're going to get 17 of that 18% back. It really comes in. But the nutrient management side of it, I don't care. Even if you're full tillage, I would be strip tilling behind my disc ripper just to manage P and K and nitrogen at today's costs. I mean, $1 a nitrogen credit, man, we're 20 to 30% less dollars. You know, that's money. I don't know how more to say that, but it's kind of fun to see, and I don't recommend somebody just to whack your rates for your first couple of years, run your recommended rates, but you're going to see that, and there's a bigger picture here, but, basic math, moving from broadcast to banning. But then the other thing is we've got, you got a precision monitor, ag leader, your field computers, whatever brand you use. We just use ag leader because, well, ag leaders works very well. I supported ag leader and precision and other stuff, and ag leader just works well. But you can add swath control to whatever your liking is. If you want row by row, build your system row by row. But for me, I don't need swath control on here. It's just the fact that the pound to the acre is so bang on, and we're only covering 30 feet, not 60 feet. And on a windy day like today, in the spring, you watch the co-ops blow, and you pan tested for these co-ops. You pan tested a lot of machines, and on a day like today, that 60-foot spread is not a pretty picture. This thing is perfect. Roll 1 to 2 to 3 right across. It is absolute perfect, about as good as you can get. And for the dollars we're spending on fertility today, to reduce your rates and just be so accurate on the control, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that is key to what your whole message about strip till is, that you're saving money on inputs while also making more money by improving your yields. So it's just a great combination.
The other fun thing is, for us here, I picked up a lot of ground from an old hay guy. Soil tests, 5 on Bray, 40 on the K level, pH of 5.2s, organic matters, 1.5 to 2, CECs, 9 to 11, you know. In fact, when I took some of them soil tests to fertility clinics and the sales clinics, some of these guys literally look at you and ask, why are you farming this? Why, you know, that's their response. And you kind of chuckle because I don't have a choice. You know, you just can't import soil. We have to build it. But the strip till thing to go into them fields, if I was still conventional, we would have gone in with the moldboard, but we would have gone in with the co-op recommendations of hundreds of pounds of P and K and lime and all this other stuff. And you imagine at today's prices to correct that field over a 3 or 4 year plan, you're going to go broke. And then we'd have moldboarded it in and made the field nice and smooth. Well, now I can feed the direct crop, and I can build the soil over time.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
It does. Someone did ask about soil structure, which I want to come to at the end, but before that, I think there was a great question from Alan about the survey data itself. He asked, why do the percentages in the survey add up to more than 100%? Great question, which I should have mentioned at the beginning, but we did give people the option to select multiple responses to a lot of these questions. So people could be picking more than one thing. That's why they add up to more than 100%. So thank you, Alan, for that question. I'm just going to quickly talk about precision. This was one of the lower interest topics from my little poll at the beginning, so we won't spend a ton of time here. As you may have imagined, we asked what type of GPS correction signal people are primarily using. As you may have imagined, mostly RTK with strip-till. 76.1% were using RTK in 2021. And then you can see followed by WAS was the second most popular. And then we asked about what GPS signal brand they were using. I put the 5 most popular from the survey up here. The most popular among our surveyed strip tillers was John Deere at 41.2%, followed by Trimble, Ag Leader, and Case IH. You can see those percentages here on your screen. If you add up these 5, that adds up to more than 97% of what this year's survey respondents are using. So most people are using one of these 5 brands. And then we had Digifarm, or I should say 97% is John Deere, Trimble, Ag Leader, Case IH, those 4. And then rounding out our top 5 is Digifarm with 6.2% of strip tillers using their guidance systems. And John, you mentioned you were using Ag Leader, correct?
Yeah, yep. I'm Ag Leader, but I'm on Terrace. It used to be TerraStar C. Now this year, I don't know whether they changed it to TerraStar X or whatever. It's the 1.5 minus, and I call it the poor man's RTK because at 1.5 minus, if you play with your antenna position and take your time and set it up, you're going to be about as accurate as somebody just roughly set up RTK, but then you're going to save a couple $1,000s right up front on unlock fees, and your annual expenses is a lot less. You know, I thought at one time it was about $1,000 a year, depending on who you go with, $500 to $1,000 a year cheaper than the RTK subscription.
Sure.
We started on WAS. So we started on WAS, and WAS worked good because WAS from one end of the field to the other held a straight line. The big thing there was pass to pass. So when you turned around, by the time you got to the other end and turned around, now you catch a new line. It might have drifted a few inches, a foot, and so then you you just had some nudges up on the monitor, and you just kind of watched out the back, just old school farming, not holding the steering wheel, but actually being an operator. And you just looked out. Am I too close? Am I too far? Hit the nudge line over and bring it up. And then we just planted by hand behind it. And worked all right. And we got by that was with an 8-row strip bar and a 12-row planter. It wasn't perfect, but it worked good.
Yeah, that's a good testament to how you can make multiple setups work in strip till. And then I'll talk a little bit about implement guidance. We had 69.4% of strip tillers do not use implement guidance. However, nearly 40% of this year's survey respondents said they plan to buy implement guidance technology in the next year, which is a 4.5% increase projections. And then we asked about variable rate as well. Approximately 34% of respondents said they used a variable rate when applying fertilizer in their strip. About 28%. 5% of strip tillers plan to start using variable rate application for fertilizer next year. In 2021, 42.2% of strip tillers used variable rate seeding for corn, while 52.2% did not. The remaining 5.6% did not use VRS for corn in 2021, but plan to in 2022. And then we also asked if strip tillers are using drones. They've held pretty steady in popularity in the last 6 years. About 23% of strip tillers use drones in their operation in 2021, which is about the average percentage of use since 2020. And this, this is my last survey data slide here, which I think is really, really interesting. This is a comparison. I looked at the average strip till yields reported in our 2022 benchmark survey, the USDA averages for 2021, and the no-till averages from the 2022 no-till operational benchmark study conducted by Strip Till Farmer's sister publication, No-Till Farmer. So as you can see here, the corn yield reported by strip tillers was 202 bushels per acre. The average strip till soybean yield per acre was 61 bushels. So that means that our strip tillers who took our survey this year had average corn yields that were 25 bushels per acre, better than the 2021 corn averages reported by the USDA in January. The overall corn yield in the U.S. was estimated at 177 bushels per acre in 2021, and that's actually a record high for the U.S. average. Strip till soybeans were 9.6 bushels higher than the U.S. average of 54.1 bushels per acre in 2021, and that U.S. average was the second highest on record. And then just talking about no-till, according to our no-till benchmark survey, their average yields in 2021 were 185 bushels for corn and 56 bushels for soybeans. So still outperforming the U.S. averages, though less than their strip till counterparts. So I'll pose the question to Jerry first. Why do you think strip tillers fared better in 2021 than no-tillers and all the other types of farming methods?
Yeah, I think this is a great slide, Michaela. I mean, just in terms of looking at this, and I go back to the comment that Jon made. We're seeing increased yields, in my opinion, because if we look at that length of no-tillers and strip tillers that were in the survey, particularly the strip tillers, is that their field uniformity is increasing. So they're taking those poor parts of the field out, and they're getting enhanced performance out of that part of the field. So the overall average is going up. So I think we're seeing the advantages of long-term commitment to a practice. And so you look at a lot of this from that standpoint. And I think the other piece of this, not only in changing field uniformity, because we have seen that over time, is that People that are into strip till and then adding that is that their poor parts of the low yielding parts of the field are disappearing over time, and they can see that on their yield monitors. I can see it's reflected in this. The other piece of this is back to this ideal seed bed, is because every one of those plants that's coming up is basically at the same stage all the time. So they're making optimum use of every bit of light that's coming in. So they have tremendous radiation capture efficiency because they've got a uniform stand. Every plant's behaving the same, so we see a lot of uniformity there. And I think that it's reflected in this, and we see it both in the corn and the beans as well. So this is a great slide to say, we can do these things and they're not going to cost us. I think the perception is that when we go to reducing tillage systems, that it's going to cost us yield. But we haven't seen that. Producers I've worked with, always bring that same thing up, is what reduction in yield? We're more than the county average as well. And I think this points it out as from that standpoint. So and it's basically that getting that, we talk about nutrients, we talk about water, and all this through this whole talk is that it's being optimized in these systems, and it's being reflected back in what we pull off that field at the end of the season in terms of yield.
And then, John, I'll ask you here, how has strip till affected your yields over the years?
Our yields are still getting better. We're still trend lining. I would love to see the breakdown of that more. So when we were conventional till, I did the cookie cutter approach, just like everybody else. You went down and here's my soil tests, and they told you what to plant, when to plant, what to fertilize, what to spray, and you just gave them your check, and then you spent the year hoping for wind, weather, rain, and markets. And once you started moving to strip till, no-till soil health, you ask questions. And so I think anybody that's been doing strip till long enough to be submitting yield data, maybe they're open-minded enough that are they practicing other nutrient management programs? And we know, especially with corn, that them fine-tuned nutrient management stuff can really show. Beans, we can show that they're going to respond to fertility, mineralized, good, healthy, mineralized soil. You can't throw your checkbook at soybeans. And so with the strip till in soybeans, you got that undisturbed soil between the rows for the year. Did they get a little more mineralization than in a full tillage thing and have a little more nutrient there? But yeah, that opens up a lot of questions to me. I would love to you could have that conversation all day long. But for me, the yields, I'm right on par with the trends we were when we were conventional till and everything happening around us. Like I said, my yield maps compared to no-till and conventional till, them yield maps are very identical to each other. A wet spot's a wet spot, a dry spot's a dry spot. The strip till kind of changes that a little bit. That wet spot, you have a miniature French drain, your seedling, like a spring like this spring where we had 12 inches of rain in 4 weeks. We did not have a water problem, I don't believe, in Minnesota. I think we have an infiltration problem. I'm sorry if that offends many people, but it's the truth if you look at how soil functions. And with that strip, you got that 6 to 8 inches or you're 2 inches down, so you got 4 to 6 inches of fluff. Your seedling is always high and dry, so to speak. And we know on yields that from day one, especially on that corn, any stressful day is taking them yields away. And on a spring like this, being waterlogged on that seed, do you lose a couple % of your stand to a wet spring like this? Do you how much of your stand do you lose if you got a rotary harrow? And then how much do you lose if you got a prevent plant because you got dead non-functioning dirt that you can't even get into the field, where on strip till ground, we got structure you can drive on and more timeliness, consistency.
Yeah, I think that we're at this question part of our thing now, and I think that's a great segue into one of the questions that came in during the presentation. Someone asked, can excellent soil structure be built within a strip till system, and what are best practices to do so?
Want me to start with that one, Michaela?
Sure, go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we've seen over time in analyzing data that over long term that organic matter is going up. We're seeing an increase in biological activity within that soil as well, because we're modifying it. We're not disturbing that soil continuously like we're doing with conventional tillage. So we're seeing that improvement of soil structure. We see all these different things that are going on, changing organic matters across the field over a 10 to 15 year period. We see the 2 to 3 percentage point increase in organic matter, going from 2 to 4%. So, I mean, that's increasing infiltration rates. It's increasing water storage. So we can build it up. And then that's when I go back to my comment about increasing field uniformity, is that when we begin to do those things, it just feeds on itself, because it's a combination of, now we've changed the soil, we've changed the water, we've improved plant performance, we put more carbon back into that soil because we got a better plant. Got all these different things that are linked together. And so, yes, we can improve it. And I would urge strip tillers to go out and look at their fields and just look at those aggregates near the surface, because you're going to see with that system that that residue that's between the row and all of this the system that's out there. It's going to be wetter. It's going to be cooler in terms of providing an optimum environment for that biology to work and everything. So all those different things feed together. But that's what one of the exciting things about the strip till system is, that we can improve looking at our soils and how they rapidly change over time. We see a lot of canes when we do this, that that microbial biomass is responding within the first year to that additional carbon that we're putting into that soil, and that starts down that path of soil improvement and soil regeneration.
John, anything you want to add to that?
Oh, if we're going to talk about soil, everybody better go get a sandwich, because we're going way over time. I'll tell you, not too many years ago, I didn't know about soil. I farmed dirt, and it is so fun. The strip till machine for building soil health is the absolute dream. It allows us to go into these fields, like for us, I already said that our soil gets very compacted. So the first year we went to no-till, yields were the same and everything's the same. You're like, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, why is everybody not doing this? By year 3, like, oh, this ground is very tight. Yields are starting to suffer a little bit. You're like, what the heck? You bring in the strip till into them fields, and we're doing side by side between strip till, conventional till, and no-till, and then with and without fertility. So you hundreds of trials side by side throughout the farm each year, and because you just leapfrog across the field, you know what I mean? And the strip till was just blowing it away, and you're just like, holy crap! And then when you bring in the cover crops and everything else, but yeah, that to if I wouldn't have done the strip till, we would have almost had to have gone back to a rotational tillage until we brought in cover crops and enough other stuff. But the benefits, the long term here, soil, sorry, the field we're standing on, the landlord complimented me this spring, and he says, with all the driving 4 and 5 inch rains we had, this is the first year in his life that he didn't see washouts on the hillsides. And we're on soil, like behind me, you'd have to throw a 4-foot level down to really see the fall. And if you fall tilled it by next spring, you'd have washouts here like you wouldn't believe. And we're holding that structure in place. And the previous renter of this field, he said, "Hey, when you going to be down on that France farm?" And I said, "On Friday, I'm heading down there." And, "What?" He's an old Swede, so he has an accent. "What? No, you can't be down there. What about all them wet spots?" And I said, "Gary, there are no wet spots anymore. If they're that wet, I drive around it." But I said, "You need to ride with me because 90% of them mud holes, I drive through. Like it infiltrates the water. It takes it in. It's functioning living soil now." Oh. When you go through that whole journey, it's really exciting to see it on your farm and start to come around. There's learning curves. Don't get me wrong. We've had a lot of failures. We've had a lot of frustrations. The first time you go out with a strip till bar and you make it 30 feet and the shank is wrapped up, along a tree grove here, all this little brush, they got roots coming way out underneath me, and you make it 30 feet and the first 3 rows are wrapped up with roots and they're plugged up and they're making a big trench and just a disaster. And your fertilizer system plugging, it's not coming out accurate. There's a learning curve. But, man, you get through them few headaches, there ain't no looking back then. I'm trying to keep it short.
I do want to try and get one more question in, which is kind of an interesting equipment question. Someone asked, would it be possible to develop a strip till rig that can build strips, apply nutrients, and interseed cover crops between the strips in the fall?
Yep. Michaela, anything's possible. I mean, that's I actually have toyed. That's not an off the wall question. I actually toyed with that, saying, could we do all of that at the same time, and thinking about how do we put that cover crop into that system? How do we look at it? So I think it's possible to build that. I think it's just a matter of as in most innovations, there's probably some producer that's already built that out there that we haven't discovered yet. But I think that it's an intriguing idea, and I think it's a worthwhile concept to pursue.
Yes, if anyone watching has done that, please let us know.
I think it's absolutely doable. Very simple to do it.
Yeah.
Nowadays with the ag leader, you can get many products to control at once. You get twin bin carts like we got here with the twin bin air cart. You just need a separate fan and a parallel plumbing. You'd basically double your plumbing up here. Oh man, you'd have an awesome rig. An extra 15 minutes of calibration in the spring to make sure that they're doing the rates you want. I think that'd be a fantastic system.
Yeah, doing a lot at once. We're right at 10 o'clock here, and this webinar is scheduled for an hour, so I'm going to stop taking questions. But Jerry and Jon were kind enough to share their contact information with everybody watching. So if you do think of questions after the webinar, both of them are more than willing to answer your questions if you send them. So your information is here. I just have a couple of more points to wrap it up here. We will have more data from the 2022 Strip Till Operational Practices Survey in the summer issue of Strip Till Farmer Magazine. That is a free magazine, and you can subscribe at striptillfarmer.com/subscribe. The data is also going to be posted to striptillfarmer.com. I already started posting some of the early survey highlights, including a list of crops that, besides corn and soybeans, that our survey respondents are strip tilling. It's a long list and very interesting, so I'd encourage you to take a look at that and see strip till besides corn and soybeans. And then finally, I would like to invite everyone watching to join me. You'll expand your knowledge and get more detailed insight into the latest strip till practices by attending the 2022 conference. That's coming up in July 28th through 29th in Iowa City, Iowa. And as a special discount made possible by our webinar sponsor, Digifarm, you can sign up today at striptillconference.com with coupon code Digifarm. You see it here on the screen, to receive an exclusive $50 discount off your registration. So thank you to Digifarm for that registration opportunity and for sponsoring today's webinar. As you may or may not know, Digifarm BBN is an RTK corrections provider utilizing a privately owned network across much of the U.S. They work with all brands of GPS receivers and have numerous ways on how we can deliver RTK corrections. You can visit digifarm.com to learn more. And with that, I just want to thank Jerry and Jon for joining us for today's webinar. I'm grateful that two people so knowledgeable about strip till were here to help bring these results to life. And I just want to open it up for any last comments from Jerry or Jon about strip tilling, the results, anything like that.
No, I think we covered a lot of material. I mean, we could go on and on with all the advantages and everything, but I think it's that field uniformity, that improved plant performance. I think that yield slide shows it all in terms of this. And as Jon pointed out, it's all about making money in farming these days, and strip till is a path to get there.
And Jon, any last words from you?
I thank you for the opportunity. This was fun. You got a never-ending conversation here. I would say find somebody as close to you as possible and just ask them questions and ride with them and look into how it's working into their soil and see how you can incorporate it to your farm.
For sure. It's always good to see it in practice near where you are and have someone to bounce those ideas off of and go to for help. So good advice. Thank you again to both of you for joining me today. Thank you for everyone who joined us live. And just one reminder, this presentation is being recorded. You'll receive a link in your email in the next couple of days to the recording. You can also go to the Strip Till Farmer website to find that too. So with that, I hope everyone has a great rest of the day, and thank you for joining us.